everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week I am continuing on with my Bustle project, my 1874 purple and white Bustle project, and I am pretty much starting off this week where I left off last week. So what I am working on right now, which by the way, if you haven't seen the last two videos, I probably would recommend checking those out first, but this is the project that I'm working on just for a little bit of a refresher. And where I am at right now is actually on an evening bodice because I still have to re-mock up the day bodice that is in the fashion plate, but I am also making an evening bodice, and last week we fit the mock-up for that and it worked great. So I'm in the process of cutting that all out right now and flatlining that to some, honestly, I don't know what this fabric is meant to be. It is a drapery cotton, so it's a slightly stiffer cotton. I would put it on the same stiffness as like a cotton twill. It is stiffer than like a quilting cotton, but not as stiff or thick or anything like that as like a canvas. It is what I'm currently using to flatline bodices as far as white fabric goes because I don't have any twill. So I'm working on cutting out and flatlining all of the bodice pieces right now. I know in the last video I said that I was not going to attempt to pattern match. I am slightly attempting it. We talked about this in, I think, the first video where for this type of fabric, what is basically like a really, really large gingham sort of plaid, if you are taking a straight piece and an angled piece, they are not going to perfectly match up whatsoever. This happened to me on the skirt panels. And the same is going to be true for the bodice panels. And so just for example, like this seam right here, we are taking a straight piece and a slightly biased piece and we are adding them together. And so even though it kind of looks like they are going to go together, they're probably not going to match perfectly. But I decided, just because I was able to place some of these smaller pieces on some of the scraps that I had already had, I decided let's kind of try for it. I have not yet cut out the side backs or the center back pieces, so that could completely go to crap because I still need to have a lot of this fabric left, this like plaid fabric left, to make a lot more bias strips out of because I've already run out of bias strips. We talked about this a lot in the last video. This dress is sucking up like so much bias because if we look at the fashion plate again, basically every single ruffle and pleated section is edged with bias. So it's a lot. And I've already used up pretty much a full yard doing bias strips. So at this point, still with 4 bodice pieces to cut out, I have this much fabric left. We should be fine, hopefully. And the other thing that I've already done is that I started sewing on the pleated and ruffled trim on the back part of the overskirt drape. It's not finished because I started sewing it on with a 1/2 inch like from the edge of the white part of the fabric and realized that I wasn't actually catching what I needed to catch. So I then went back in with, I think I'm at like a 3/8 inch now, and I am catching things, but I need to redo the rest of it and pick out what I had already done at a 1/2 inch. So that's kind of annoying. So that's in progress right now. I also am going to have to definitely bustle up the skirt more because the weight of all of those pleats and ruffles is dragging down what I had already bustled in place. So that will have to get shortened. I also posted a little bit about the front ruffle that I had kind of gotten to at the end of last week's video and that it just looked weird. So I'm not ready to add that on to the gown yet. We're gonna wait on that until really after the bodices are done because then I can also check the pleated trim that will go on top of it. But I think that a 2:1 ratio for that, it's too much. I think I need to go like 1.5 or something like that and just make it a little bit less ruffled. So that's going to get put to the side for now while we focus on bodices. I'm going to finish cutting out the evening bodice, put that all together, and then I'm going to turn my attention back to mock-up number 2 for the day bodice. So first off, bodice, evening bodice, is assembled and is ready to be tried back on before finishing sleeves, buttons, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's great. And as far as pattern matching goes, I mean, I knew it wasn't going to be perfect because like I said, when you are taking this sort of gridded pattern and you are putting a bias against a straight, it doesn't match. So like, It's not the worst. I mean, the side seam is pretty decent there, but by the time we get over around to the back, not so much. The center back looks nice though, so there's the center back. I tried really hard to get that mirrored. In any case, once I finished the evening bodice, I turned my attention back to the day bodice to make all of the changes that I had from last week's mock-up. I have not yet recut this out because that's what I needed to talk to you guys about. I've been playing around with the tails back here, trying to get them to look like the fashion plate, and I have just come to a realization. 3 tails of this approximate size, not possible as a plus size person. I mean, this is obviously a drawing of a tiny little woman, and it's a drawing also, it's not a real woman, and to get around the size of Bustle slash the waist size slash the hip size, etc. that I am, 3 of these tabs doesn't work. So that means that we need to change course and either figure out, do I do some sort of an adaptation of this tab pattern, or do I change it entirely? I am inclined to change it entirely, but I haven't really given it that much decision yet because I literally just came to this realization. I just put this on the form and I was like, huh, yeah, that is not gonna work actually, because I was trying to figure out the lines, and the lines basically would have to come to around here and go down here, but that makes this humongous. And the back, if I were to make it bigger, I would wind up having a seam probably in the middle of the side back panel, and I just don't want that. That's not what I'm going for. Like, I want it to be on a seam line because that makes sense. And so we've run into our dilemma of what to do. My initial thought, just like looking at the fashion plate here, my initial thought is take away the tab idea and just do this as like one continuous back that is maybe delineated with trims. Like, I could still have trims that are going up and down, etc., but it would actually be all one piece connected at the hem of the tabs, or at this point the hem of the peplum. And then it kind of leads into the question of, well, how far do I bring this forward around to the front? Because if I brought it all the way forward to here, but it was one continuous shape, like, that again makes more sense than having a really, really large tab going all the way around one side and then like this little small center back thing. If it's continuous, that's probably okay. So I'm kind of thinking, I haven't cut anything off of those tabs yet. Everything is just folded up, and I'm kind of thinking I'm going to unfold them, give that little bit more room in there so that it has some like flow and oomph to the tails, and just kind of reconnect where those lines are going to be. I am still going to have to cut out the front new and probably the side also, because I had done this really steep cutaway here, and that actually is the side. That is not like, there's no fabric that I can unfold from there. So I'll cut out those 2 pieces new to do a new mock-up. Frankly, I needed to recut the front anyway because the neckline was too low, so that is totally fine. But the back and side back pieces, those are fine. Those can stay from this mock-up. So yeah, I'm gonna recut those, sew those back together, and try that on at the same time, or, you know, while I'm all corseted up, as trying on the evening bodice, the actual evening bodice. Hopefully that will be a go, but I always like to give something a try on once it's in the actual fabric, because of course silk acts really differently to a cotton mock-up because silk doesn't have any give to it. So yeah, I think the next time that I see you, I will be trying on an actual and mock-up number 2. I have just finished shortening all of the twill tapes in the overskirt here. I just basically made little like tucks and sewed across it. That's the easiest way to shorten it. And I did it to every single tie going across. Honestly, probably about the same amount. I think it was about like close to 3 inches total that I took out of here, but in like kind of different places, because all of the anchor points in the center back, for example, they were all quite close together. So I had to do little small ones, whereas the side ones, I was able to take just like bigger loops out. So anyway, that should be anyway, good. I put it on the back of the form, like over the underskirt, and it now seems to come to the right length. So that is wonderful. And then I also have put together the mock-up for the day bodice. So I am now ready to try on day bodice mock-up 2 and evening bodice actual 1. And hopefully everything's gonna work pretty well. I actually did increase pretty much all of the length of this as well, like everything new that I cut out so that I could fold up seam allowance also. So hopefully this is gonna look pretty much exactly like it should look in the final. So let's try it on and see how it goes. So you know what's funny? After the extra work that I had done to get the tail of this bodice so nice and square, I don't really like it. I feel like it's at odds with the rest of the dress that is like so floofy and bouncy and like rounded and everything, and that is just like square. And yeah, I don't think it's what I want. So I think I might make it into a point or something. I think it also needs to be shortened. It seems too long for like where the skirt is. I don't know. Again, it's just weird. I don't like it. So that has to change, sadly. The rest of the bodice I think is great. Though I did realize that, or I remembered, it's been a while since I did a button front, pointed front. It's been at least a year because I can't remember if I did that last year. I think last year's were lace ups. So it's been more than a year. And it dawned on me after making this beautiful point with the matching plaid and everything, you need to overlap past the center front, because if you just bring the edge to the center front, where you would think that a bodice closure should be, and would be if you were using hooks and bars, that's where the buttons go. And so the buttons can't be right on the edge. Even if they're fake buttons, they can't be right on the edge. And naturally, this is how I have designed both bodices now. Now I can extend it over, but then it makes points so much more confusing, because then within like the point, the center basically is like here. So, you know, you have your point and it goes down and then it goes up a little bit, and then the center is between that, and then the edge is over more. So I'm trying to decide if I actually want to leave this as a button front, or possibly just do the day bodice as a button front and make this hooks and bars, because I like this. I think it looks really nice. Like the plaid wound up matching it beautifully. Yes, it's a wider version of the purple plaid, but considering we have, you know, variations in the plaid all the way around here, that does not bother me at all. And so I'm kind of thinking that I'm going to turn it into hooks and bars instead on this one, just because I think it looks nice and it's like fitted quite well. I mean, it's obviously just pinned in place, but it literally like lines up on the edge of the plaid, which is kind of awesome. So yeah, I think I just have to fix the tail back there, figure out what's going on there. The shoulders maybe feel the tiniest bit loose, but not so much that I think I can even fix them. What I am going to do though, I had folded in the seam allowance a little bit. I'm actually going to take in just a little bit more than half an inch right up here at the shoulder to bring it just slightly wider. I don't want to go too wide. As I've mentioned many times, I don't like off the shoulder. So this will be like just wide enough that my chemise strap, this is just my ribbon strap, versatile chemise, that can still hide over there. But it's not gonna be like falling off the shoulder. So then that brings me to kind of the next question with this, which I last night told myself, oh, I should mock up the sleeve before I try on the bodice. And then I completely forgot today before I tried on the bodice. So I should do a sleeve mock-up also, but I still have to fit the day bodice. So we're gonna do that first and then return to this. And I've been really torn about the sleeve because frankly, like sleeves of this era, if they existed at all, you don't always see them. They were so short. They were like this. But the thing is that like again, most of the bodice straps were off the shoulder. And if you have a bodice strap that like comes down here and then has this little, it still feels like more of a sleeve, a longer sleeve. I like sleeves that go down to at least here. So my sleeve is gonna have to be a little bit longer. It's gonna be poofed, it's gonna be made of the white fabric, and it shouldn't be too hard. Knock on wood. So yeah, I'm gonna mock that up and we'll return to the sleeves in a little bit. Let's go try on the day bodice. Also, while I'm at it, I just wanted to show you how nice just the one ruffle looks. So, I mean, my goal is still to do the pleats, the second ruffle, etc. But if I don't make that goal, I'm not stressed because actually that looks really nice and really cute and it complements well with where the ruffle goes in the back. I haven't joined the pieces together yet and I still need to make a waistband obviously once I join them. And the ruffle will be, you know, more continuous because it will be attached up here. But yeah, I think that looks actually like really cute. So if I don't get there to do the second one, like I think a hat has now surpassed second ruffle in to-do lists for the just over a week that I have before the Victorian Festival. Okay, so first off, remember that if you missed mock-up number 1, that is in last week's video. So if you want to kind of see both mock-ups together, go watch that one first, and then you can see mock-up number 2 and how we have actually improved. It's not great. It's not bad. It's not great though. The biggest thing that is the reason I'm not even pinning this on yet is that I have folded down the seam allowance on the neckline, or at least, I mean, I did. Some of it might be sticking back up, but it is too high in the back. It's preventing the entire bodice from getting where it needs to be. So I need to lower this. I think, I mean, at least half an inch, possibly even more. But I think that once I get rid of like even just half an inch, I'll be able to get this in the right place. Like I went to go put it on and I was like, oh, the bust darts are really, or the bust is really high up. It's not where it needs to be because it can't get there because the back of the neck is in the way. So yeah, that's the first thing I need to fix. The other thing is that when I was doing my new like patterning for this seam in particular, the shape of this piece looked so wrong that I didn't believe it was correct. And so I added extra in there because it's easier to remove than, you know, cut out an entire new mock-up piece. And I didn't need that because it's creating this shape that is not at all what I want. This needs to be more like this. And I think that that is coming from this seam right here as opposed to the shape here. So I need to play around with that, but I can't really play around with that until I can pin shut the bodice, and I can't do that till I take away the excess in the height of the neckline. So I'm going to do that first, then we'll pin shut the bodice, see what other changes might need to be made, and especially focus our attention on this area right here. All right, I took the back neck down by half an inch in the center back, tapering it out to the shoulders, and actually that fixed so much. So now I have obviously pinned the bodice front together, and we can examine what all needs to be fixed. For one thing, the bust darts really are not quite right. I think they're maybe coming up too high, so they're a little bit funny up there, but that should be a pretty easy fix. But the bigger issue is, of course, this area right here. And actually, it's not the shape of this panel, I think, that is causing the problem, because I'm pretty sure that if I were to remove this wedge right here, which is like based on the patterning, what I thought would be incorrect, that this would wind up getting really pulled and wrinkled and stuff. So I think actually I just need to fold this away and get rid of a whole big wedge from the front to get a nicer line. Now that said, I'm not loving the tail of this bodice either. I don't know if it's a length thing or what. Obviously, it's not going to be a match to the fashion plate exactly because of the whole not being able to do it as like 3 overlapping tabs situation. So yeah, I'm not sure if that is just like what's kind of feeling off to me. I think that part of it is length and part of it is shape. And so the other thing, of course, is that it's going to be out of a fabric that is matching. It's the same fabric as the white, but then it's going to have the trim delineating it. So it's not going to be as jarring as like this pink color versus the white, but something is not right here. So we need to figure out the new lines for that. I think the front is decent. I want to look at it in the mirror more, but I'm not too worried about that shape. I think that's pretty much good. The neckline, I actually do need to open it up a little bit because it should just be a little bit more square. So it's literally like a little wedge right here. It just needs to get wider. Height-wise, I think it's pretty close. I maybe can bring it down a touch because it is going to have lace filling in as well, just like lace trim that will fill in a little bit. And I feel like height-wise right now, I don't know. Again, I need to study the fashion plate a little bit more to see if I should bring that down ½ inch. Keep in mind, from last mock-up to this mock-up, I increased this by 1 full inch. I brought it in 1 full inch on every side, so it was like much wider before. I was worried that the shoulders would be a little bit too wide, but actually I think those are good. By the time we get into the seam allowance, I think that's going to be sitting pretty much where I want that, so that is good. The back seems to be fitting well. I have to double check it in the mirror, but I think by taking out some of the upper center back from mock-up number 1 to now, that has helped. So yeah, fit-wise, I think we're pretty good. It's really just the peplum area. Something is off. So I wasn't sure how I was feeling about the length of this section right here. If anything, I think it might actually have been supposed to have been longer, but I decided to kind of just mock together a bow, which is literally just the widest ribbon that I own, and see what that would look like, if it would make it look more balanced. And I think that it does. If anything, I feel like it's making me want to like shorten the back end a little bit, because then I'll get a steeper angle here, which is what I think I need. I don't know, it the whole thing makes me look very hippie, which is like fine, but it's not really bustle, you know? So obviously I haven't done anything to this side yet, but it is almost making me wonder if I just want to like scrap the shape of the fashion plate altogether and like get rid of some of this even more, maybe cut it up higher, do it just in the back. I don't know. It's not looking right. I think the other thing that I have to keep telling myself is that there is trim that creates extra width and length around all of this. And so I just measured what the back tail should be minus the trim, and it is like 4½ inches. This is definitely more than 4½ inches long. So I am going to shorten it to there. I did also just do my scale math on this section right here. It's actually just about right. It should be 7.15 inches. It's 7.5 inches, but I do feel like shortening it is not going to help. But shortening the back, I think, would help. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to pin the other side to match this side. I did widen it out a little bit more, I think, than what I was showing you in the mirror. But yeah, I'm going to make them match. I'm going to shorten the back. We're going to see if that makes me like it better, because already by bringing it out this much, it does feel a little better, but I'm not sure yet. Oh, and I definitely have to bring the neckline down. Honestly, looking at the fashion plate again, I'm almost starting to wonder if she has some sort of a chemise set going on, because frankly, hers looks like it comes down to like here, which is obviously not appropriate for day wear. So she may have a chemise set going on in there. I have chemise sets I could use, like my one from my velvet bustle, or I could just put in like a little tucker that I could build into the neckline, because yeah, that line, I mean, the bow on the bust sits like here, and the bow is just below the closure. So frankly, that needs to come much farther down. Okay, I have shortened the back, and I feel like that is actually more the correct angle. I mean, keep in mind that there's going to be about like 1.75 inches of ruffle going all the way around that, and I think that that brings us to the correct, like, I don't know, depth, width, height, etc. The correct length all the way around. And I've just put this little square right here to represent the pockets that will be there. I don't know if it's in exactly the right spot. It's approximately 0.25 inches bigger than it is meant to be, but I think that it looks cute regardless. And yeah, I also brought down the neckline. So this will be filled in most likely with either just like some really wide lace or some sort of like a little tucker area and then lace going alongside the neckline as well. So it's not going to look this deep, but I guess I was more correct from the get-go, like my initial mock-up as far as the neckline goes. It is narrower than it was, but it is actually lower than that mock-up was as well. But yeah, I think we're good now on day bodice, so that's awesome. I am going to see how much longer I can hang out in this corset and skirt and everything, considering I've been wearing this for a while now already, and see about maybe adding some sleeve mock-ups both for evening and for day wear, because then I wouldn't have to get all dressed up in this again. Though frankly, I guess there's not much point in doing a sleeve mock-up for the day wear now. I usually like to do a sleeve mock-up after I have the like finished bodice part, so I could just go ahead and recut this. Though that also reminds me that then we lead into the question that I had before with the evening bodice about the button front. I really do want to do a button front with this, which means that this has to go 1/2 inch over that way so that the buttons can be along this center line right here. So I just have to remember to cut that out differently, like in the final. So I have to write some notes about that so that I remember. But yeah, at least I still have the chance to do that. And I think we've figured out everything else at this point, at least with the day bodice, which is really good because I was stressing. Oh, by the way, I don't think I made this clear before, but the reason that I am not just going to open up this front, the center front here, and then like do a separate facing or something like that is the pattern of the plaid, because right now it's just a really nice edge and it meets the same edge over here so that the pattern really matches. But if I were to open this out, we get the next line over, and so I would have like a 1/2 inch of a different pattern, and so it just doesn't look good that way. I would much rather have that really nicely meeting edge here. So that's why this one is going to turn into front hooks and bars, which, to be honest, I don't think was really done much. You might have like back lacing, back hook and bars, hidden hooks and bars, like within a, you know, sort of a placket closure in the front, or front buttons, but I don't know of many situations where you would have a center front hooks and bars, but we're gonna do it here. So yeah. Oh, also, I haven't tried this back on yet. I should now, but I think I'm gonna give a sleeve mock-up a try. But I did shorten the tail and I sort of curved it up a little bit on the sides, and that also will change the pattern because it was ending in a white bar. Now it's going to end in the purple. I don't know if this is going to be nicer, but I think it's gonna look a little bit less harsh. It's also possible that I could add trims or something like that to the edge of this, but let's go ahead, do a little puff sleeve mock-up here and see if this tail is any better and try this one back on. I have double great news. For one, sleeve mock-up. It might be too full when I cut it out in the silk. That's possible, but I like it. So I am going to cut it out in this dimension in the silk and then see if I have to pull back. I can always recut it smaller. I can't make it larger. But in the organdy here, which is what I've used for my mock-up, it looks super, super cute. I think it's the exact right length. It's exact right fullness, again, in the organdy, which is a lighter fabric than Dupioni. But yeah, that looks really, really cute. It is, I think, a little over 9 inches tall, because I think I actually made it just slightly longer than I had originally intended, because I remembered, oh right, when you have a poofed sleeve, you have to keep in mind that it's going to poof away from the arm. So where I wanted like 9 inches from the shoulder seam to here, I needed a little extra. So it might be 9.5 or 10 inches in height, and then it's 6.5 inches on the bottom. And I love it. It's so cute. It's 38 inches wide, this one piece right here. That does include the seam allowance. So it's a wide sleeve, but yeah, it gathered up just perfectly. And the other good news is with the shortening of the tail, and maybe it's the shortening of the tail and the balance of the sleeve, I'm not sure, but I like it now. I think it looks cute. I can see myself maybe adding a little trim or a ruffle or something right along the edge. But I think that looks really good back there now. So that's awesome on both counts, because that means that I can now like do the finishing on this bodice. I can bind the point, I can bind the neckline, I can add the hooks and bars, I can cut out sleeves and actually make sleeves, and then I can start trimming. And that is all really, really exciting because that means that once that is all finished, I will actually have a working bodice. Now again, I want both working bodices. So the other thing that I'm going to be doing concurrently with all of that is that I am going to be doing the day bodice, cutting that out and putting that together. And then once that's together, then I will put that back on and we'll figure out the sleeve for that one as well and the trimming, etc. But yeah, I'm really excited about how this is going. I'm feeling so much better about things. I am still going to wait to combine the front with the back of the overskirts until almost the last minute, because if I get the time, I will be adding the pleats and potentially that other row of ruffles and everything as well. But at this point, I am feeling worried about time. It's Thursday night right now. Next Thursday night, I need to have everything done and packed because I'm going to be leaving Friday morning for the Victorian Festival. So I have a lot to do before then, but I am feeling more positive. And I have almost all of tomorrow, except a dentist appointment, unfortunately, and all of Saturday and all of Sunday. So that's really great. And then I have rehearsal on Monday and Tuesday, but then I have Wednesday and Thursday nights. I do have to figure out everything else that I'm wearing, and ideally I have to make a bonnet or something for the day look, but that's like all the other stuff I'm wearing is going to be pulled from my closet. It's not going to be hard at all. So it's just a matter of finishing everything here. So keep your fingers crossed for me, but I think we can do it. So I did not actually film at all yesterday, but I did sew a lot. In fact, I sewed pretty much all day from like 2:30 onwards, and here we are 2:30 again, and I'm going to sew onwards from 2:30. So my evening bodice has sleeves. First off, I mean, they're not finished. They are ready for me to try them on again because I'm a little bit concerned that they're more of an 1890s scale as opposed to an 1870s scale, which is significantly smaller. Basically, this silk dupioni just has a lot of body, and so these look a little poofier than I had intended. So we're going to try that on again and see how that goes. However, I may wait because I have bias tape arriving today, like pre-made, just off-white bias tape arriving, and I want to get all of the edges bound on this too. So depending on when that arrives, if that arrives like pretty soon, I'm going to wait, do all the binding, and then try on the sleeves. And that is not the only thing that I have to try on, because I also have a day bodice to try on. For this one, before I try it on, I want to mock up some sleeves. I have not yet done that. So that is going to be pretty much next on my list, is to do a sleeve mock-up for the day bodice. It is almost certainly just going to be a two-piece, like, I think long sleeve, fitted sleeve. I mean, frankly, from like looking at the fashion plate, it could be kind of a bracelet length or like a long 3/4 length because of all the ruffles down there. I don't know that I need a fitted sleeve underneath the ruffles. So basically I could stop it kind of around here on the arm and then go into ruffles. So I have to play around with that with the mock-up and everything, but I want to mock that up. The other thing that I might mock up first might also be the collar, which colors I feel like I'm just now terrified of because of the rainbow dress, but this one, knock on wood, should not be quite as hard. And then the other thing that I started to do yesterday was I also cut strips for the ruffles that will go around all of the peplum or tail of the bodice. So that is ready to be put together with the bias strips, which I have also cut out. I've cut out both 1.5 inch wide bias strips, which are right here, and also 2 inch wide bias strips, which are here. These are the ones that are going to get layered on top, that are like flat layered. So they'll basically have each side turned in, and then they'll be 1 inch wide. These ones are the ones that's going to go along the edge of all of those ruffles. And so yeah, we're basically gonna see what time the bias tape comes. I didn't want to make my own bias for all of this. It just felt easier to spend $10 and get 25 yards of it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use commercially made bias for everything that you don't actually see, and then obviously my own bias for like all of the contrast. So I think just because I want something a little bit mindless right now, I am going to start with the ruffles and with putting that together. Also because I'd like to play with the placement of it when I try on the bodice. So I want to have that prepped and ready to go. And then I will do the sleeve mock-up, which I also need for the try on. And then if the commercial bias tape is here at that point, I am going to bind off the evening bodice just to separate it a little bit from the day bodice so that I don't have to do all the binding all at once. And if it is not here by then, I'm gonna go ahead, try everything on, and we'll see, make sure that the day bodice actually fits correctly now that it's in the silk. We'll see if these sleeves are too big and if they need to be reduced. And we will also test out the sleeve mock-up on the day bodice. Oh, I forgot that besides the normal, just like putting the pieces together assembly after flatlining sort of assembly with this, I did actually also already add a facing. It's not finished, but it's like finished on this side. So it's just a 2-inch wide facing that I cut the same shape as the center front opening. I did that for both sides. And then down here, I did also put a little binding piece already on just because I had pretty much enough to just do the fronts. And also I'm hoping that I don't actually have to bind the whole rest of this because I think it will just get incorporated up with the trim and we won't see it at all. So I don't think I'm going to have to finish that, but I won't know until I attempt to add the trim and see how that goes, if it in fact also needed to be bound. So yeah, that's a little step ahead. Normally I wouldn't do something like that without trying it on, but it's so little that it will be very easy to undo if it's awful and I need to change it. So yeah, anyway, I'm gonna go back to working on these ruffles now. By the way, if you've never made bias tape with a bias tape maker, one of these, I highly recommend you just cut your strips to the right width and then you just kind of feed it into this and keep retreating the bias tape maker, follow it with the iron, and you wind up with really lovely bias tape. I suppose you could probably do it for a straight grain as well, but yeah, this one is just shy of 1 inch wide, I think, to be honest. I was hoping it was 1 inch, but that's why we're getting a little bit of like a pinch as this is coming through, but it is still making out to be, I think, 1 inch wide. So yeah, these are really great. I will try to link this in the description if you're interested, but they're super handy. The bias tape has arrived. I got it in both white and ivory because I ordered the white first and then realized, no, this is really more of an ivory project than a white, but I need white bias tape anyway. I needed both. So I have a feeling that if this works out well, which I assume that it will, that I will be ordering this in a lot more colors now that I can't just like run to Joann's and get a little pack of bias tape. Honestly, this feels identical to what you get in the package. I'm just trying to test the bias. It does have a little bit of stretch, like it has that bit of bias stretch, so it seems like it's gonna work fine. But yeah, this was like $9, I think, for 25 yards, so it's a much better cost. I'll link it down in the description if you're interested, but this seems like it is going to work. So now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and bind off the evening bodice. That way when I try it on, it will just be like nicer to try on. And I'm gonna sew this right sides together on machine, turn it over, sew that by hand. And then while I've been waiting for that to come, I already showed you me making the 1 inch wide bias, but I've also been applying the 1.5 inch wide strip to the ruffle strip. So I'm gonna go ahead and press this into place because that way this can just be ruffled up and be good to go. So yeah, lots of little fiddly things, and then we will get back to sleeve mock-up and actually trying everything on. Well, an hour and a half of hand sewing later, I have finally finished doing all of the hand sewing of the binding of all of the sides of the evening bodice. Hopefully it's all correct because I don't want to have to redo any of that. But that means that, I mean, I would love to put hooks and bars on here before I try it on again. That's probably going to come after the try on because my hands are cramping from doing all of that hand sewing in one sitting. And I know that I have a lot more to do because once we try on the day bodice, then I'm going to have to do binding on that. But it won't be as much binding if I can get the ruffles to work for like the tail area, because then I won't have to bind those. The ruffle is ready to be put on, so that is great. So that means that I just have to do a sleeve mock-up, put that together, and I'm not actually going to set it yet because I want to try on the bodice without the sleeve mock-up first, but I'm going to like cut it, assemble it, have it ready to be set, and then we get to try on both bodices, make sure everything's good there, and set that sleeve, play around with trim. We'll see how things go. So I was just looking through my patterns and I pulled out my packet that I had put together for my natural form bodices. I label everything, like I put it in plastic bags and I label everything with the Sharpie on the plastic bag. So I pulled out the packet of all of those sorts of patterns and found in it fitted inner long sleeve and fitted outer long sleeve, and they are already on fabric. So I am hoping that I can just put that together and that will work. It would appear that I used this for the rainbow bustle last year because it says rainbow. I'm guessing that that means that that's the length of the rainbow because that one's a 3/4 sleeve. So hopefully this has been used even relatively recently. I don't see any other changes to it. So yeah, I'm just gonna put this together and this should hopefully work as our sleeve mock-up. So they're not 1890s scale because that would be a lot fuller, and I feel like shortening them isn't going to do anything. It would literally be, I'd have to just make them less full, which I'm tempted to do, but also I know how much time I have, which is, you know, not very much at all. So I think that I am going to leave them for now, but not finish them. And if I wind up with like extra time this coming week where I could take them off, make them a little smaller, like cut them down by an inch or two, put them back together, then I will do that. But I'm not going to do it right now. The finishing that I plan for these sleeves is honestly probably just to bind the bottom with like a band that fits my arm. Probably not bias because that would then stretch, but some sort of a band that fits my arm, but that you wouldn't see from the outside, so it wouldn't be like a full-on band here. It would be tucked up inside, and then most likely I will apply lace both along the neckline and at the bottom of the sleeves. So I have to look through my lace stash and see what would work best over there. The other thing though that actually does need some attention, I don't know if I did my corset a little bit looser than I did last time, but even with last time, it was kind of pulling quite a bit to try and get it to the center point where everything is all lined up. I know I don't have it pinned everywhere, but it's very tight to get there. I think I need to release one of the darts on each side just a tiny bit through the bust area. And I think that might also just help with the fit of the darts because there is still definitely something weird going on with the darts. I did lower them. I don't remember if I mentioned that. I think I told you I was going to lower them between the mock-up and this like final version, and I did lower them, but something is weird and maybe I shouldn't have lowered them. I don't know. I do have a fairly harsh line where the top of the corset is, which is right here, and so I think that that is not helping, but I don't necessarily know how to fix that at this point because I'm not wearing a corset cover with the evening gown because I just find that corset covers don't tend to work as well with evening gowns because of neckline issues. Most of my corset covers are closer in at the neckline, so they show. And probably that means I need an evening corset cover, but I don't have one and I'm not making one at this time. In fact, I haven't made any of my corset covers except for my big Edwardian ruffled one. All the rest of them are like lacy, lightweight cotton tops from like Old Navy. So there's a good hint for you. You can very easily find corset covers out in the wild. In fact, since I happen to have it right on my table here before I try on my day bodice, this is my current corset cover. It's from Old Navy. I think it came out last year. It's cotton. It's got all sorts of lace and pin tucks and everything, and it looks really lovely, and I think it cost me like, I don't know, $15 or $20, and that is much easier than doing that all by yourself. So yeah, that's my corset cover, but it definitely doesn't fit with this neckline. So yeah, sleeves are gonna stay for now. I think the binding all looks nice, so that's all good. It's really just the darts are a little funky, so I need to work on that. I need to figure out my trim for the neckline, and I will revisit this in a moment. So for trim, I found this beaded lace in my stash, It gives off a nice sparkle that I think will be a nice touch to this. It is white, whereas this is all just like the slightest bit off white. So I am debating about just dipping it in a mug of tea real quick and seeing if I can get it to just go that tiniest bit ivory. But I do worry that it would go too far because, I mean, this is so close to white, but it is not white. So like that's just, you can see the color difference there. This is like a little bit more ivory over here, but this is really, really close to white. And so I think that white trim is going to work anyway. But yeah, just to do this around the neckline, maybe on the edge of the sleeves too, but I don't know if it will actually look good there. And then I'm thinking maybe a bow also of the purple velvet here, because that would bring the purple velvet that will be the bows down here. It would bring it up to the bodice for the day bodice as well. So I think that'll work great. Unfortunately, with the beading, I don't think I can apply that by machine. I think that's going to have to be by hand, but oh well. And as I mentioned before, the trimming is all going to wait until after everything is wearable. So obviously I still need to fix the bust darts here. I put little pins on because I think they're actually going too high, and I think that's the problem. So we're going to take this off, refit bust darts, and hopefully fix everything there. Unfortunately, silk does scar, so I probably will still see the stitch lines, which is annoying. Nothing that I can do about that besides press it as much as possible to try to get rid of them. But yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna leave the sleeves as is for now. Honestly, I'm probably gonna leave them period, because although they are a little bit full, I don't hate them. I think they're cute, and I think the length is good. The length helps with keeping them as a bustle era as opposed to an 1890s. So yeah, overall, I think pretty cute. We just got to fix these darts, and then I can add the hooks and bars as well. And at that point, other than the sleeves just having their edges finished, it will be wearable. There we go. Darts have been fixed. So that is great. That means that I can go ahead and put the hooks and bars on the front of here, and then kind of put this off to the side and wait to have the trim put on, sleeves finished, etc. So let's take a look at the day bodice. All right, day bodice try on. The first things that I'm noticing are that the arm size are too high, particularly in the back of the arm side. So I do have to cut those down a little bit. And also the darts are actually a little bit too large on this one too. So they also have to be taken out a little bit here, because this right here in the center is not overlapping where it ought to, kind of going all the way up to the bust here. And again, they're also ending too high. So I need to take the darts down / out a little bit, drop the arm side down just a little bit, and then we can take a look at the sleeve. And also I have made myself a little collar mock-up. I have no idea if this is going to work. We're going to try it out though. So let's fix the initial problems here. The other thing that I am wondering is if the neckline is still too high. If you notice all these wrinkles, it's, I think, because it is coming in at least possibly too close to my neckline. Now granted, the seam allowance is still in there, so I feel like once that is gone, that it's going to be fine. Yeah, actually that looks like that's removing most of the wrinkle, and now this wrinkle is just it being pulled down by my arm. So we'll drop the arm side down a little bit, change those darts, and we should be good fit-wise. There we go. That is so much better. By dropping this down even just ½ inch, it's not pulling anywhere anymore. And by lowering the bust darts and increasing, or I guess decreasing, what is being taken away by the bust darts, everything is just fitting much better here. I feel like everything looks more rounded, which is good. I forgot to put on my corset cover before putting this on, but that will kind of help smooth things as well. So yeah, that looks really good. And now I think it is time to attempt setting our sleeve mock-up here, which hopefully will work. I mean, it feels good. So as long as it sets well, then it will be good. So fingers crossed. Good news, the sleeve works. Now it did not actually work in the initial form. I didn't set it, so I didn't show you, but basically the sleeve head was way too large for this arm side. So there's actually like a good chunk of the sleeve head that I just kind of pulled and moved up until it wound up fitting. Once I realized that it was not fitting in the armscye, I unpinned it and then just put the sleeve on and realized that the sleeve itself was coming up to like here on me. So I basically, when I went to go pin it back in, I just moved that portion of the head up into the armscye, and I'm just gonna cut that away. I also think the elbow is not quite in the right place, so I have marked where my elbow is, and I'm going to like change the shape just slightly to there. And I am not positive, but I think there may still be a little bit extra in the sleeve head. So I've drawn little marks right here and right in the back where it's the most wrinkling. Now, those may be necessary because that allows me to go like this. So I might just need to keep the wrinkling in all of those places because it's going to give me the most mobility, but it's just something that I'm going to keep in mind as I go to cut out the final that I may need to take away there. So although I am not going to cut it away yet, I may take it away later. I have also decided that I'm going to cut this as, I don't know if this is a bracelet length or just a long 3/4, but basically I'm going to cut it 4.5 inches up from the wrist plus seam allowance, because that is where the band should wind up going across of the ruffle on the sleeve. That's the band, the big purple band. And so it should end there, and then we just have the ruffles coming down from there. I think, though, actually, now that I've just said that, the very lowest ruffle you can see is literally just ruffled lace, and that lace is going to have to be a lot longer if I don't actually extend the sleeve all the way down to where the lace could connect from. So actually, scratch that. We're going to make it a long sleeve. The advantage, of course, of making it a long sleeve also is that if I don't get these ruffles done, the sleeve can still look finished, because as I've mentioned now multiple times, the trimming is really going to be the last thing that I get done in these next like 5 days that I have before the Victorian Festival. My goal for the rest of tonight / tomorrow, just as a heads up, it is just almost 11 p.m. right now on Saturday night. And my goal with today and tomorrow, mostly tomorrow because it's already late today, is to get these 2 bodices wearable. So that means sleeves, finishing the edge of the sleeves, which at this point would mean just doing a little turned hem, like with a bias tape, for example. I do need to figure out the collar, so that's going to be the next thing that I'm going to try out here, is to try on this collar, because once the collar is on, then I can finish off the neckline here. Probably apply the ruffle. I again want to look at that here while I'm wearing this, and then closures on the day bodice. So yeah, we're going to try and get this as wearable as possible, and then next week will be just trimming, which is good because really Monday, Tuesday, I have rehearsal at night. So my sewing time is limited to like probably 2 hours after work before rehearsal on each of those days. And then Wednesday and Thursday, when I'm also packing and cleaning my house for my pet sitter, I have the evenings free. So I will have some sewing that I'll be able to do there, but again, I also have to clean and pack. And that's why getting things to be wearable is really going to be the key. The other thing that I don't think I have mentioned to you yet is that I went through my hats to see if I had any finished hats that would actually just like work as is. I don't. So then the next question was, what hats do I have that I could transform into this? Now, first off, if we look at the fashion plate, despite this being day wear, she's not wearing a hat. I feel like she should be. She's outside. She's got a parasol. There should be a hat there. And I don't know how that general rule comes in of hat versus no hat outdoors, because I was under the impression that if you were outdoors, you're wearing a hat. But I suppose if I don't have a hat, it's not the end of the world. That said, I found these 2 kind of hat blanks in my hat stash. I mean, this one, if I tuck up some of this weird ribbons, honestly, this almost feels like it should be a doll hat, and perch this on a very high hairstyle, it could practically work as is. This one is actually a vintage hat. My guess would be 1940s, because in the 1940s, this little bonnet shape came back in, and this could be redecorated. However, I think it would need new binding on the edge, which is a larger project. I mean, it's small in the scheme of things, but it's a project. It couldn't be used as is, and then it could be trimmed out and be a nice little perched bonnet up here. So either of those will work, or apparently, according to the fashion plate, no hat will also work. But for now, let's see if we can figure out the collar so that we can finish off the mock-up process. Oh, and of course also take a look at the ruffle placement for the trimming. More good news. So this is a lay flat collar, which in my opinion is an easier sort of collar because it lays flat on the bodice, and therefore if you take the bodice and you put it down on your mock-up and you trace around the neckline, you have a fairly good chance of getting the collar correct. And that's what happened here. I was just slightly off. It was a tiny bit high coming up here. So basically my angle was wrong right there and it came up a little bit high. I have now cut that off, but that means that it is now angled up here. So it just needs to tilt down a little bit. And then I need to figure out the overlap. I just have it like laid on top right now. But obviously it's going to overlap the right over the left. And the left will just get incorporated with like a button on top. Actually, no, that'll just be hooks and bars because there's a big bow right up here anyway. So I will start the buttons lower. And yeah, so I'll just kind of tilt that down, angle that down a little flatter right here, and we're good. We have the collar. I made my mock-up here to the finished measurements, but including the seam allowance on the neckline, because right now my neckline includes seam allowance. I did not include seam allowance here, so this is going to be the dimension of the finished collar. I did my scale math again, and I found that this is probably what the dimension should be. Now, granted, I have been using my scale math based on length and not width. So really looking at this, maybe it should be a little bit wider. I don't know if I want to tweak it. I'm going to stare in the mirror and see if that needs to change, if it needs to just get a little bit wider, like up through the neckline, or if I just like it as is. Regardless, I'm going to add seam allowance to the outside of this, and otherwise we're probably pretty good. I think I am going to widen it just a little bit, a 1/4 inch wider by the time it gets to the bottom, but up here where it like kind of narrows in, I am going to bring that a full 1/2 inch by the time it gets to the shoulder, and same with all the way around in the back. So it will be a little bit wider plus the seam allowance on top of that, but I think otherwise we are good to go to cut that out of the velvet, which is a little bit nerve-wracking. Though actually, that said, I have enough of the plaid that I could still do this in the plaid, but I had kind of gotten it in my head that I wanted it velvet, and I don't have enough of the plaid, I don't think, to do the bows. So let's just try it in the velvet. So I've been playing around with the ruffle trim, and I think that this is going to work just fine. That said, I do think that the best way to apply these ruffles is flat, which means that I do also need to finish off the bottom here, or else it would just be like a serged edge. I don't know. I don't really love that idea. So I think I'm going to go ahead and bind off the bottom and then apply the trim, which yes, is one more step of hand sewing and is probably an extra 45 minutes, but I think it will be worth it in the end. So I have just cut out my collar pieces here. This, what you're looking at, is 2 layers of velvet right sides together on top of this layer of like really stiff cotton. I honestly don't know what that is down there, but it seems stiff enough that I'm going to use it as my collar interfacing, because I looked at like the hair canvas that I have and some other interfacing and it just wasn't good. So we're going to try this. It doesn't need to be very stiff because it is a flat laying collar. Hopefully this will just work to kind of keep the velvet in check. And I'm going to pin this all around in 500 bazillion places and attempt to sew this by the machine. 2 layers of silk velvet together don't necessarily like to be sewn by machine, so keep your fingers crossed for me. As you can see, I pinned it very closely together, and then I flipped this over and I sewed it with this side on top. From here, things look pretty decent. So let's take all of our pins out, trim our seam allowances, and turn it right sides out and see if it came out okay. I am pressing the edge of the collar here from the underside of the collar using a scrap of the velvet to protect the edges. So this is my scrap right here. And that is making it a little bit shiny on the edges here. However, the other side looks really nice. Don't look right here, which unfortunately is the very base, because at first I started pressing it from that side. Don't do that, because that's what makes it get shiny. But you can see over here, This does not look shiny. This looks really nice. So unfortunately, that's right in the front, but it should be covered by the bow. So that's okay. The rest of this will look really nice. And yeah, just use a little scrap of your velvet, put it against the wrong side of the velvet. And even if you do that, it will still get shiny because I still use the pressing cloth over here. But if you do it from the back side, it doesn't matter. This is what it looks like from the top side now that it has been pressed into place and pinned in place. I'm honestly almost tempted to iron it right here so that it matches the shiny right there. But again, that should all be covered by the bow because this kind of comes together and overlaps. And then there will be a really big bow there that I still have to make that will be made out of the velvet as well. I'm going to put this aside for a moment now, and we are going to go ahead and do the sleeve on the day bodice. I have actually already bound the bottom of the day bodice. I did that first thing this morning, just because I wanted to get that out of the way. So yeah, sleeve is next, and then probably closures on both day bodice and on the evening bodice. Actually, I might have to put the collar on the day bodice before I do the closures. So the sleeves are on. And they're not hemmed. They just need to be bound with bias, and then that can be like the wearable hem. But I figured let's turn attention to buttons. So I was trying to figure out how far apart to space the buttons. These are 1 5/8 inches apart right now. These are going to be like covered buttons that you have to cover. They are 5/8 inch covered buttons, and I've got 8 of them on there. And then the top of this will have some hooks, probably 2 hooks underneath the collar, because there's no point in doing buttons there. Honestly, I would love these to be velvet. That doesn't make any sense because buttons have to be pressed and handled a lot. So I'm going to cut them out of the purple areas, like the deeper purple areas of the plaid. I should have enough plaid scraps that is like totally easy to cut them out of. And I think that that'll be a really nice contrast for the front of the bodice. All of my buttons are made and all of my buttonholes are done. So let's go ahead and sew on the buttons, open up these buttonholes, and once we add the collar and I suppose hem the sleeves, then the day bodice will be wearable. Unfortunately, I'm worried that's not going to happen tonight. Well, we did not quite make it to wearable on either bodice, but we're so close because the collar is complete. I just finished binding the inside of the neckline, and yeah, it is good, I think. I mean, I haven't tried it on yet. It's a little bit maybe not quite as nicely laying in the corners as I would wish it would be, but overall it is not bad at all. The velvet looks really nice, but we don't have buttons on this yet. We do have buttonholes. I forget if I told you that, but I put buttonholes on here. And we don't have binding on the hem of the sleeve yet. So other than that, this is wearable, and it will be wearable at the beginning of the next video. So that's going to be it for this week. I made a little list of everything that needs to get done in next week's video, so I figured I would read that off to you. Basically, like I mentioned with the day bodice, we need to do the buttons and we need to hem the sleeves. At that point, it becomes wearable. With the ball gown bodice, we need to do the hooks and bars up on the front, and we need to bind the sleeves on that one, and at that point, that becomes wearable. So kind of the same amount to do on both of those. Then, whatever more that we have time for. I mean, the one other thing that is required to make something wearable is to put the overskirts together onto a waistband. However, that is honestly going to wait until Wednesday of next week because that will give me potentially time to do maybe some additional trimming. Though I think I would rather at this point do trimming on the day bodice and the neckline of the evening bodice than on anything else. So that's kind of what's next on there is the trimming that will go on the sleeves of the day bodice, all of like the ruffles and lace, etc. By the way, I picked out, I think, a lace for that. I think I'm gonna gather up this eyelet lace and use this for both the neckline and the hem of the sleeves if time. If I don't like the way the eyelet lace looks, then I also have just this lace that I could gather up. But that is like an ideal thing that I could add. We also have to add the velvet bow along the neckline. That I think is a necessary thing. So that's going to take priority before we add the ruffles along the bottom of this, along the peplum, and the ruffles on the sleeves. But that's all stuff that needs to happen there. More ruffles and pleats for the overskirt is also on here, and potentially decorating a hat. I think that's everything. Obviously, it's a lot. Oh yeah, we still have to do the bows for the overskirt too. So yeah, there's a lot left to do on here, and I have basically 4 days for next week's video, except not really because I work all 4 of those days and I have rehearsal on 2 of them. So next week's video is going to be really exciting, so make sure that you are subscribed so you see that one. But if you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, as I mentioned, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays, and sometimes with additional costuming related content or shorts out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean and Kim. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!